Have you seen any bribery? Have you seen any evidence of corruption?
Never. I never had this experience. Personal to me, never ever come everybody, somebody and to offer me something for whatever, give me your vote for whatever.
Franz Beckenbauer is often spoken of in reverent tones, as if his career existed above doubt, failure, or controversy. To many, he remains the ultimate football aristocrat, the elegant defender who redefined his position, the World Cup winner, as both player and manager, the calm figure who seemed to glide through football history untouched by chaos. But beneath that polished image lies a far more complex story, one marked by painful defeats, moral shadows, and a gradual retreat from public life. Before we explore that full journey, if you enjoy long-form football stories that look beyond trophies and legends to uncover the real moments that shaped careers, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. These deeper stories help us understand football history in a more honest way. Beckenbauer's rise to greatness was so smooth that it almost felt inevitable. From a young age, he carried himself differently, with a natural authority and composure that set him apart. He was not loud, not reckless, and rarely emotional in public. That calm exterior became part of his identity, earning him the nickname Der Kaiser. Yet that same image later made his darkest moments even more jarring, because they clashed so sharply with the idea of a man who always seemed in control. Even early in his life, long before global fame arrived, Beckenbauer encountered controversy that threatened to derail his path. In 1963, at just 18 years old, he was banned from the West Germany youth team after it emerged that his girlfriend was pregnant and that he had no intention of marrying her. In the moral climate of the time, this was seen as unacceptable behavior, especially for someone representing the nation. The ban was humiliating and damaging, casting a shadow over a young career that had barely begun. For Beckenbauer, this moment was a shock. It was his first real confrontation with the idea that footballing ability alone was not always enough. Reputation, image, and conformity mattered. Fortunately for him, influential coaches intervened, arguing that talent and potential should not be wasted. The ban was eventually overturned and Beckenbauer was allowed to continue his development. Still, the episode lingered as an early reminder that public judgment could be harsh and unforgiving as his career progressed. Beckenbauer experienced success on a scale few players ever reach. Titles, admiration, and global respect followed him everywhere. That made the rare moments of defeat and physical vulnerability stand out even more. One of the earliest of those moments came in the 1966 World Cup final, when West Germany faced England at Wembley. Beckenbauer was still young, learning what it meant to carry expectations on the biggest stage. That final ended in heartbreak for West Germany, and England emerged victorious after extra time, aided by a controversial goal that remains debated to this day, and a hat-trick by Geoff Hurst. For Beckenbauer, the defeat was painful not just because of the loss, but because of the sense of injustice that lingered around the match. It was a lesson in how football history can be shaped by moments beyond the player's control. The disappointment stayed with him, fueling a quiet determination to return stronger. 4 years later, at the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, I found himself at the center of one of football's most dramatic matches. The semi-final against Italy, often referred to as the match of the century, was a contest of endurance, emotion, and physical sacrifice. By the time the game reached extra time, both teams were exhausted, and the margins were painfully thin. During the first period of extra time, Beckenbauer suffered a brutal setback. After a hard challenge, his shoulder was dislocated. Under normal circumstances, he would have been substituted immediately. But all of West Germany's substitutions had already been used. The choice was stark: leave the pitch and abandon his team, or continue in agony. Beckenbauer chose to stay. What followed became part of football legend. With his arm strapped in an improvised sling, Beckenbauer played on, visibly impaired but unwilling to surrender. Every movement was painful, every challenge a risk. Despite his bravery, West Germany eventually lost the match 4-3, the image of Beckenbauer continuing, despite injury, became iconic, symbolizing courage and leadership. Yet behind that image was deep frustration. He had given everything, and it still was not enough. That match represented one of the few times Beckenbauer was physically overpowered by circumstances. It showed that even the most composed players have limits. The loss hurt deeply, because it came after such sacrifice. It reinforced the cruel reality that football does not always reward bravery with victory. While Beckenbauer eventually conquered the World Cup as a player in 1974 and later as a manager in 1990, the most damaging moments of his life would not come on the pitch. They would come years later, when he transitioned from footballing icon to administrator and global ambassador for the sport. It was in this role that his legacy became entangled with controversy. As head of the committee for Germany's successful bid to host the 2006 World Cup, Beckenbauer was at the forefront of one of the biggest events in modern football history. At the time, the tournament was widely praised as a triumph, celebrated for its atmosphere and organization. Germany's image was rejuvenated, and Beckenbauer stood at the center of that success, smiling, composed, and respected. But years later, that success was clouded by serious allegations. Investigations revealed a controversial payment of £8.4 million to a former FIFA executive, allegedly linked to securing votes during the bidding process. The suggestion was that bribes may have played a role in Germany winning the right to host the tournament. Beckenbauer denied wrongdoing, insisting that he had acted within the rules. Nevertheless, the investigation followed him relentlessly. For a man whose image was built on elegance and integrity, the scandal was devastating. Court proceedings dragged on for years, keeping his name in headlines for all the wrong reasons. The trial eventually ended without a verdict, as the statute of limitations expired. Legally, the matter was closed. Publicly, the damage lingered, questions remained unanswered, and doubt crept into how his later career would be remembered. The strain of this period was immense. Beckenbauer, once omnipresent in football circles, began to withdraw. The joy that once accompanied his public appearances seemed to fade. The scandals did not erase his achievements, but they complicated them, forcing fans and historians to wrestle with uncomfortable contradictions. In 2014, another blow followed. Beckenbauer was provisionally banned for 90 days from all football-related activities by FIFA's ethics committee. The reason was his failure to cooperate with an inquiry into the controversial allocation of the 2018 and 2022 World Cups to Russia and Qatar. Once again, Beckenbauer found himself associated with the murkiest corners of football governance. Too many. This ban felt symbolic. It marked a turning point, where the game he had given so much to now seemed to distance itself from him. Even though the ban was temporary, it reinforced the perception that Beckenbauer's administrative career was defined as much by controversy as by contribution. As these investigations unfolded, Beckenbauer's public presence diminished further. Health issues began to affect him, and he gradually retreated from the spotlight. For someone who had once been the embodiment of footballing authority, this withdrawal felt tragic. The man who had stood tall through victories and defeats now faced battles he could not control in his later years. Beckenbauer rarely spoke publicly about the scandals in detail. Those close to him suggested that the constant scrutiny weighed heavily on him. The calm composure he was known for remained, but it was quieter now, more reserved. The game that had once been his playground had become a source of stress and controversy. Looking back, Beckenbauer's worst moments reveal a truth often hidden behind greatness. Legends are not immune to failure, controversy, or moral complexity. His on-field struggle showed his humanity, his vulnerability to injury and defeat. His off-field controversies exposed the darker realities of modern football, where power and influence can blur ethical lines. Yet it would be wrong to define Franz Beckenbauer solely by these moments. His contributions to football remain monumental. At the same time, ignoring his worst moments would create an incomplete and dishonest portrait. His story is powerful precisely because it contains both brilliance and blemish. Beckenbauer's life reminds us that legacy is never simple. It is shaped not only by success, but by how one navigates adversity, criticism, and doubt. His journey from celebrated icon to controversial figure reflects the evolution of football itself, from a sport of ideals to an industry of immense power. In the end, Franz Beckenbauer stands as a symbol of football's contradictions. Elegant yet flawed, victorious yet haunted, admired yet questioned. His worst moments do not erase his greatness, but they force us to see him as human. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all. Legends are not defined by perfection, but by the full weight of their stories, including the moments they would rather forget. As time passes, the way Franz Beckenbauer is remembered will likely continue to evolve. New generations, further removed from the emotions of his playing days, may focus more on the controversies and the triumphs, while those who watched him play will always recall the effortless grace and intelligence he brought to the game. This gap between memory and history is something many great figures face, but in Beckenbauer's case it feels especially stark. Because of how spotless his image once seemed, there is also a quiet sadness in how his later years unfolded. A man who once commanded stadiums and boardrooms alike gradually faded from public view, not through a dramatic fall, but through silence and distance. Health struggles and legal pressure combined to push him away from the game he shaped so profoundly. For fans, this absence felt unresolved, as if one of football's most influential voices left without a proper farewell. Still, when his career is viewed in full, Beckenbauer's worst moments add depth rather than erase meaning. They show how immense success can bring equally immense pressure, and how power within football often comes with moral tests that are difficult to navigate. His story forces uncomfortable conversations about responsibility, accountability, and the cost of influence in the modern game. Ultimately, Franz Beckenbauer's legacy rests somewhere between admiration and reflection. He will always be remembered as one of football's greatest minds and most transformative players, but also as a reminder that greatness does not place anyone above consequence. His life tells us that even the most celebrated figures carry shadows, and it is in understanding both the light and the darkness that we truly grasp the history of the sport.